The lesson.
Oh yeah.
Big Cash from Sydney. How you doing, bro?
Hey, what's going on, bro? No, not much, man. Just kicking back. It's good to finally meet you, eh?
Yeah, man. It's the first time on the lesson, so thanks for taking the time to jump on, dude.
Nah, whatever you need, man.
Now, look, you are one of the most controversial MCs in the game at the moment. And, you know, we're going to get stuck in everything.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
But when I was doing my research, I didn't realize that you've been actually, you know, dabbling in the rap thing for quite a while.
Yeah.
Because I think there'd be a lot of people out there who'd think you'd just come on the scene in the last year or two.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it, eh? I see a lot of the comments there like, oh, he's improving with every song. I've been in the scene since I was like 15.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I realized as I was doing my research. It was like, oh, okay, wow, there's a bit of history here.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of walk through pretty much your whole career front to back.
Yeah.
And I want to even start before the music.
Yeah.
Now, I guess first and foremost, you know, where are you from? Like, what area did you grow up in?
What area I grew up in? I grew up around Smithfield, Fairfield area.
Someone from South Australia who has no idea about Sydney, that particular area, I mean, what was it like growing up in that area? Is that a safe area or is that a bit of a rough area?
It was pretty violent. There was a few islanders there, but not many. I was mostly raised around Arabs, Assyrians. Like the whole area is full of Assyrians, and they were just shooting each other when we were young. You know what I mean? There was a lot of killings and murders and that. So yeah, it was pretty full on back then. For a young kid to see, like, to be around shit like that, it's like pretty, it plays with your head, you know?
So if you talk about seeing that shit when you're young, I guess, you know, how young are you talking?
I didn't really like physically see it. Like, you know, you just see it on the news, you hang around the station, then you hear about things and that. Like, I was probably around like 14, 15.
And then I guess with the violence comes the drugs.
Yeah, the drugs and the
turf
turf wars, and then everyone's just killing each other over drugs.
And then, I mean, as 14, 15, you know, being around that, you know, did that influence you? And, you know, is that how you got into the street life sort of shit?
Yeah, it influenced me a bit, but probably what really made me turn to the street life was I had a lot of issues with my father when we were young. He was very violent towards me. I think you already know this. You would have heard it in one of my other interviews, but I didn't really go in depth with the interviewer. But yeah, that contributed to a lot of my gangbanging years later. You know what I mean? So.
So you would say that it's the domestic violence?
Yeah, domestic violence played a big part in me, like throwing away my life, because I did it just to get back at my father. You know what I mean? I grew up with a lot of resentment towards him, and it just. Like, even to this day, we don't talk anymore. He still keeps in contact with my siblings, but we don't talk at all, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, just a few issues recently happened. I don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't want to cover those issues now, but later on maybe, but not now. It's still a bit of a touchy subject, you know? So.
Now, I guess, you know, domestic violence being something that lots of people in Australia experience.
Yeah, 100%.
As someone who went through it and can see the effect that it had on them.
Yeah.
If people are watching that are going through domestic violence, what sort of advice would you have to give, if any?
Like, just speak up, man. Like, speak to someone. You know what I mean? Like, if someone's abusing your mother or abusing you, you need to open your mouth. I never said nothing to no one. Like, I remember I was in year 8. I went to school. I was covered in purple. I got detention one afternoon, and I couldn't go. So then I went to the office and I would try to make up an excuse because my dad was waiting for me at the front. And I was almost started crying. And she goes, "What's wrong?" And then she went to grab my arm and then I flinched. And she goes, "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" And she goes, "Take off your blazer." I took off my blazer and my whole arm was purple. Like, sometimes it helps just to open your mouth and talk, you know? Keeping it to yourself doesn't do anything. Because the domestic violence just carries on and on and on until someone ends up getting murdered or something, you know what I mean?
And then, so, you know, being 14, 15, around domestic violence in an area where there's, you know, street violence, drugs, etc.
Yeah.
Where and how did the street stuff progress for you from that point?
Probably I was always a naughty kid. When I turned probably 15, 16, I moved to Mount Druitt. I moved to Mount Druitt, and then that's where that was the area that made me bad. That's when I started getting real fucked up. Like I started getting involved in gang culture. Because in Fairfield, I was just a little naughty cunt. But then when we moved to Mount Druitt, because my parents were pastors. The bloke was, it's a pretty fucked up story, eh? The bloke's a pastor, he's the most violent man I've ever met in my life. But you understand what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. No, that's very interesting because a pastor is the
pretty
same
weird
as
story.
like a preacher.
Because on one hand, he's a pastor preaching the word of God, and on the other hand, he's abusing the fuck out of his son. You know what I mean? So it was pretty messed up. So then we moved to Mount Druitt because he got moved. So he got placed in Mount Druitt at one of the churches they had there, in Edmonton. And then the feud between me and him just kept going. So then I ran away from home, I was homeless, I just took off, I started joining gangs. That's where I got heavily involved in gangs in Mount Druitt. It really fucked me up. That area really is what they advertise it. It's fucked up.
So how old were you when you moved to Mount Druitt?
About 15, 16. I remember I got kicked out of Patrician Brothers in Fairfield, and then I had to go to Blacktown Boys, but it ended up working out because when we moved there, I went to Blacktown Boys. So.
Now, as someone from South Australia, I've heard of Mount Druitt.
Yeah.
It's got obviously a pretty gritty reputation, and I reckon I've seen some videos online and shit.
Yeah. That kind of stuff it's always been happening. Like since back then, it's nothing normal. Like to the Islander community, it's just another day. But like to the general public, they're like, oh, they're a bunch of animals, they're savages. Because you see like 20 blokes jumping on one dude. You know what I mean?
So can you walk us through your memory when you first, arrived at Mount Druitt?
Yeah.
And, how, you got involved in the gangs, and which gangs did you get involved in, and then what sort of activities were sort of happening at that age?
Yeah, I put around 16. I actually got introduced to a few of the boys in the area from a friend of mine that was already staying in Mount Druitt, but we went to church together. And then he introduced me to a few of his friends. We started drinking, and then I got familiar with the area and that. Met all the boys, started doing all these other shit. We went robbing houses, doing all this dumb shit. Started drinking together, and then I ended up joining a gang. Long story short, because you know me, I like to blabber on. Long story short, I ended up joining, the first gang I ever joined was called NFP, Niggas from the Pacific. Everyone from Mount Druitt know this gang as well. They're one of the first ever. So I ended up joining them. And then the cunts just ended up bullying me, man. I got bullied a lot. Yeah, they never accepted me because I was like a little white kid. I don't think they liked it. I probably got jumped like 13 times, I think. I got the shit kicked out of me. Like just random. We'd be drinking with the boys, and they'd just turn to me when they get drunk and just jump on my head, I go home all banged up, and my mum would be like, oh, what's wrong? I go, oh, no, I just had a fight. How
long were you in that crew? And then, at which point did you move on?
Oh, I was in that crew for about, probably about a year or two. And then we ended up having, as I got older, I started realising things for what they were, and then we started having issues. And then I broke off, and then we started our own crew of the boys at church. So then from there we started a crew, it was called RTB, Ruthless Tongan Brothers. We were just little kids. All my brothers in that were involved, my little nephews. We were all involved in it together. And we used to beef with other areas like Guildford and all that. Anyone like Guildford, Granville. So it was like Mount Druitt versus everyone else. That's where that drama comes from today. Not many people know that. The whole district thing with 27 and 21. We started that like fucking back then when I was like 18. Like everyone thinks it was a thing that happened 5 years ago, but we were the ones that started it. We used to jump on trains, go down there, fuck a few of them up, then come back to Mountie, they'd do the same. It's just back and forth. And then 10, 15 years later, it's the 27 and 21 drama. You know what I mean? Not many people know that. We were just boys at church. We were just church boys. And like we'll just get, you know, guys from different areas where, like bad cunts, they just have a habit of sleeping with the same women. It happens all the time. And then someone's missus will shit go him and then go fuck a cunt from Granville, and then that's how it starts, you know what I mean? And then cunts get chopped over something they had nothing to do with.
The lesson.
27. Oh, yeah.